So I believe we are live. So that's lovely. No preamble. Lovely to see you. As long as we're all here, that is the key thing. So welcome everybody. So this is a little, what do we call it? A taster of the event that we're going to be having in May, which is the Global Workforce Innovation Summit taking place in London, Canary Wharf, 22nd to 24th of May. And Jen is going to be one of the amazing speakers at the event. And we thought it'd be a really great idea to have a little chat, find out what you're going to be talking about, kind of tease everybody a little bit. So I will introduce Jen. Welcome. She's got a long career in human resources across lots of different industries, and she's currently the Chief Human Resources Officer for EcoBat Technologies. She owns the HR consulting firm L2C. And you also sit on the advisory board of the recruiting platform. And I'd love to know how you say this, SBRT2TH, is that how you say it?
Sabertooth. And actually I was
Sabertooth. Oh, it's you and your digital spellings. That's what threw me.
Right. And just a quick little clarification. So I was formerly the head of HR for EcoBat. So
oh, you're no longer that.
Not anymore, but I was.
You were. Fantastic. Okay, well, we'll clarify that before the meeting. So we're talking today ahead of your session at GWIS, which is what we're calling the Global Workforce Innovation Summit. And you're going to be talking about corporate transparency and employee engagement. So my first question is, what are we talking about here when we talk about corporate transparency?
Corporate transparency really helps drive retention, in my humble opinion, right? It really helps drive retention of our employees. And what we've seen in the media lately, all of these virtual layoffs and communicating via email, as opposed to having real candid conversations with our employees and our employee population. There's a study done by GWIS, which is saying that basically 35% of employees believe their organizations communicate effectively, but 74% of those employees feel like they're missing out on key company news and just not getting the type of information that they're looking for.
But there's obviously, you can really negatively impact the workforce by not having the right transparency, can't you? You're sort of saying that people are feeling they're not getting included, but it's going to have a more severe impact than that, right?
Oh, absolutely, right? The less transparent we are with our employees, the more likely they are to leave the organizations and go to other companies that believe in having that open two-way dialogue and two-way conversation with their employees.
It's so true, isn't it? We want to feel like we matter. And if people are keeping secrets from you, you kind of feel like you're very low down the food chain, you're not important. But how can you sort of persuade people who've kind of traditionally not been transparent? And I think, that's the way business was for a long time. It was very much need to know. You informed the worker bees later. You didn't do this sort of modern, I guess some people would call it touchy-feely stuff with your workforce, did you?
Right. Well, and it doesn't all have to be touchy-feely, right? I think people genuinely want to know what's going on. I've worked in a number of industries, and let's even talk on the industrial manufacturing side, where you have employees that are actually physically making a product, but have no idea the impact of their product with the teams that are selling them to their customers. And so they're really hungry for that customer feedback, but there's a breakdown somewhere in that communication where, okay, our manufacturing workforce is just manufacturing the products they don't need to know. Well, yeah. I think that you'll see an improvement in quality, an improvement in so many different parts of what happens just by sharing that feedback, right? And it's really not that difficult.
Well, that's the collaborative thing, isn't it? I think traditionally everything was very siloed, and it doesn't necessarily need to be, does it?
No, not at all. Absolutely not at all, right? There are stand-up meetings that happen every day, right? And it's just a matter of, how do we reshift and prioritize communication and really understanding how our employees want to be communicated with. I know I've done multiple employee engagement surveys where, effective communication comes at the top all the time. And so as a leadership team, we're like, okay, we're going to do more town halls. We're going to push more information one way, one directional. But we're not going to sit down and actually take the time and talk to our employees to understand what is it about communication that you're not seeing. Right? What type of communication do you actually really want to receive, and what does that look like?
I mentioned there, like you sort of asking people, so it's not one way. And I mentioned before about you sort of have this tradition where people didn't share information. What about the other way, and that people maybe in say the blue collar or lower down the food chain in the office might feel disinclined to share feedback or might be uncomfortable to? How can you persuade them?
Yeah, well, I think some of that goes with how are we developing our managers and our leaders to be able to receive feedback? Because one reaction, it only takes one reaction where someone says, no, that's a horrible idea, for someone to never want to share feedback again. And so it's really how do we receive and how do we give that feedback? And so for our employees, I still highly encourage every employee to share feedback and to be constructive and come with ways that we can improve things, as opposed to, hey, we just have a problem and leave it at that, right?
And I think in the digital age, you've got a lot more places to leave that feedback. You haven't just got your one line manager that you see to tell. Right. You've got forums within intranets on the office, kind of collaborative workspaces that people are using digitally to feedback. And I guess the most important thing as well, though, is to feel that that's been heard and listened to and responded, not that it just goes into a complaints box that nobody ever looks at.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, one of the biggest demotivators out there is the fact that, hey, I gave you my opinion and I shared an observation and you did nothing with it. And, one of the things that I know I had worked very closely with our teams on in the past is, all right, so you got this idea. What's that closed feedback loop? Even if you're not going to do something with it, tell your employees that you're not going to be able to do something with it and tell them the why behind it, right? Don't just say, nope, we can't do it. Explain why we can't do it, but make sure that you are closing that loop. Or, if you have already done something to address it, but they just didn't realize it, come back and tell them that too. It's a win.
I mean, it's very interesting to talk about it, because obviously I don't work in the human resources industry. I'm an MC, so I work in the events industry a lot. But I see this in events, in that concept that we are giving people so much information and we're not really listening to them. It's something I talk about. And I know at GWIS, we are trying to push this idea that if you think of the audience as the workforce, they're not, but they're obviously the attendees coming, we're going to want that collaboration too. We're going to want people to feedback how they're thinking, what they're thinking during the session. So I know during your session, I mean, obviously they're short sessions because we know we don't want to tire people out, but there's also that collaboration bit. So people are going to be able to ask you questions and get involved, aren't they?
No, absolutely. And I highly encourage that, because, the value is in the dialogue. And I'm one person that has, a pretty robust background, but there are so many people that have so many different experiences and have seen what good looks like and have seen what bad looks like. And the more collaborative that we can be in that session, I think the more fun it's going to be for everybody.
Can you just, I know I don't want to give away your whole talk, but could you maybe share something that maybe people go away and start to think about or do before they come to GWIS, even if it's just taking the temperature of what their organization does? Or is there something that they could sort of go, oh, I've got a kind of quick win already just from listening to Jen for 10 minutes?
No, I think, I would highly encourage people to go back and to kind of test how people are receiving feedback and how people are receiving information, not just feedback, but how people are receiving information, and ask about the effectiveness of it.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because there's a psychology to it, isn't it? It's not to take the information as a negative. If it's asking a question, you think, my goodness, we spent ages doing a project to do that, and look at the feedback's coming back saying they didn't even know about it. And it actually, it's more just, maybe it's the communication that was broken down, not the actual great project that helps people.
That's right. Well, and my mantra has always been, feedback is a gift. You can't do anything with it unless you have it, and then it's a personal choice.
Yeah, that's really valuable. Thank you. Well, one of the things that's going to be happening as a result of these LinkedIn is a little discount. So we want you to all, if you're listening, to go and check out, obviously, what's going on at the GWIS conference. You can see the link below us talking about it. You can register and get a discount because you've been listening to Jess. So copy the link that is at the bottom of the page. And I think it's also going to be in the chat, hopefully. But you can watch it back. And then you can get a discount to GWIS, which is taking place 22nd to the 24th of May at Canary Wharf in London. And we would love you to come. Obviously, any questions for Jen, put them in the chat. We will get access to it. Oh my goodness. That's Jess's naughty dog, who's behaved right up until this point. Is that the postman turning up with a parcel?
That was Fredo just giving his feedback on how important communication.
Yes, very important. Fredo is in a two-way communication relationship
right.
with Jen there. So Fredo sadly won't be at the. You're going to show us to him, and he'll be tiny. Is he like a little chihuahua? No, is he big?
I wish. He's a relatively big dog.
He's a relatively big dog.
And Claire, I would say, Professor Denny Leclerc from Thunderbird is going to be joining the GWIS conference, and he's going to be doing a fantastic workshop on cross-cultural communications and collaboration, and the importance of that and how that affects leadership. So
that's on day one, isn't it? That his
right. So
yeah, his workshop's day one, so that'll be really useful to see, and then actually come and listen to your talk as well. I mean, a lot of it plays
it all blends, right? I mean, it's planned very nicely, the entire agenda. So very exciting.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about that with the agenda. Like sometimes when you go to an event, there's lots of different things going on at the same time, and then you always feel you have to miss something. So this way, everything plays into each other. So there's kind of a journey we're going to go on the 3 days of GWIS.
Right, absolutely.
So you don't want to miss a moment of it. So check out the link, everybody, and we hope to see you in May. And in the meantime, thank you, Jen, for giving us a little bit of a taster of what's happening.
Oh, my pleasure. Looking forward to seeing everybody there.
Yeah, me too. Thanks so much, Jen. Thank you, everybody.
Take care.